Well, welcome, Nancy. I'm so excited to have you and to bring you to my Wonder Women group. We're all so happy to have you.
Delighted to be here again and covering a topic that affects a lot of women.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting when I've talking about around my community about the topic of guilt. It is um, everybody seems to say if I can't come to the night, it's because I feel guilty that I can't be there because I feel guilty I can't be there and I feel too guilty to come. I don't want to leave my kids at home. I don't want to try to leave work too early. So,
Every direction.
yes, it is. So, if you just want to start us off and share some thoughts about guilt and anything else about this topic, we'd love it.
Well, if you had a year or two, I could get through all of it. But in the limited time, I thought as I was thinking about this over the last couple of days, I was thinking, well, what are some things, just random things over the last 48 hours that I've felt mild pangs of guilt, but guilt has arisen. And so I made a lovely list. One is I don't make meals anymore for the family because I seem to work the longest day and everyone eats something different. So I began to question the narrative of why do I also come down and the hungry sparrows are waiting for the appearance of something fabulous. When I did make the vegetables last night, which I do for everyone, they were made wrong, not soft enough. I wouldn't Uber Eats because I didn't want to spend $20 on delivery. I wouldn't get a 23rd streaming channel. I actually was tired last night, so I didn't provide a sparkling performance so that everyone would learn something and be engaged and grow. And I was just sort of a regular person. Sunday, I didn't go shopping with my daughter because I couldn't bear the idea of facing the crowds. What else? I stopped trying to get my daughter to tell me more than one monosyllabic thing about school. And oh, I got the picture day wrong. I did. I made it Wednesday, not Tuesday. Crime. I called her friend uh, Navia. I called her Nava. Crime. And at some point, I let her do her phone because I couldn't. I couldn't do it. Oh, and at 11, I didn't want to socialize anymore, and I went upstairs to bed. So that was my list for 48 hours. How are we doing?
Wow. I mean, wow. Yeah. Yes.
On board. That's just a regular day. But those are the little ones, right? Then they're the big ones. But to say women and guilt, it's almost redundant, right? They're a sandwich, they go together. Um, and from the time, as we know, and we've talked about many times in many contexts, we're very young, we're taught that our worth is how well we take care of other people. That's what our value is. We're praised, we're seen as good, we belong. These are survival skills. These are emotional survival for us. We also are just empathically attuned in a way genetically that's different than people born male, right? So there are many reasons that this business of making sure everybody else's experience is a great one, right? Uh, why they're here. But the problem is the cost of that is guilt. So that, in other words, guilt is the emotional enforcement of that narrative, which is that we're responsible for everybody else's experience. If we don't give everyone a good experience, we failed. And there's the guilt, the primary guilt, right? And we have to do something to fix it. So we want to just hold that basic belief there, which is the assumption that we are responsible for others and how they feel. not just for our own behavior, but their response to it, and all of the above. And as mothers, that's on steroids. That's 1,000 degrees. But I wanted to also just mention something. As somebody who studies behavior and so on, I always notice when something changes. And I'm my first guinea pig. So I noticed an experience the other day where I didn't feel guilt, where in the past I would have. And I really had to pay attention because I noticed, wow, where is my friend guilt? So, just in a very brief story, my older daughter, had participated in a very big event. And over the 7 months of preparing for the event, I had been her primary supporter, her primary that raised all the funds. I was the person who, through the dinners and the parties, and they gave her gifts, and got t-shirts for all of her friends, and the dog had a t-shirt, go, 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 you're a legend, whatever. I did it the way I was supposed to do it, right? Celebrate, celebrate, fabulous. And on the day of the event, it was a very cold and windy day, and I went to several of the locations where I was to see her, and did that and loved doing that. At the very end, with hundreds of thousands of people there, I, with her best friend and sister, could not find her. And I had been out in the cold. My body temperature by then was probably about 88.2, and I'm not a big person. So I was starting to go into kind of like a hypothermia. And I thought to myself, here's the moment. Here's the moment. So I did. I left. It had been all day in the wind and cold, 7 months. So lo and behold, I couldn't get a cab. I couldn't get public transportation. It took me about an hour and a half to get home. So I'm like, you can imagine. I walk in the door. No one talks to me. No one. No one talks to me. And my husband is enraged. You just left. My daughter is just mute. And her best friend is, of course, tending to her. They were, the saints, and stayed. My sister, her sister, my daughter. Okay. Person non grata over my head. You can imagine. And first thought, you can imagine, I won't go into the expletives. First thought was,
Yeah.
are you? Anyway, I came to find out that the one moment that she wanted in the whole process was the moment when the medal was around her neck and she had my hug. I didn't know that was the one moment, only moment that mattered. So over the next couple of days, she told me all my crimes, everything that I had done. And I was defensive. I was defensive. I was not available yet to hear what a terrible mother was. I just was not. And in any case, what I noticed is that later, a week or two later, I could hear about my crimes, but I never felt guilty. I never felt I'd done something wrong, and that my compassion, and there was a period where I felt guilty about this, but my compassion went to myself after all that hard work, that's what I received. It broke my heart for myself first. And as I said, there was a period where I had to get through that guilt. But so I looked at, well, what did I do different that we can all benefit from, right? So when I was being read my crimes and person non grata, the first thing that I did was I asked myself, do you feel guilty? Do you feel that you've done something? Do you feel you had been unkind to her in some way? So first, does it violate my values, or is this learned guilt on her part, on my part, on the cultural narrative? Is this the cultural narrative? And first I was 100% clear. I don't feel guilty about this performance piece, right? So that was number one. Secondly, I reminded myself of all the things I had done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I literally wrote a list of wow and wow and oh, I forgot I got her that plaque, and oh, forgot I called her other friends to, blah blah blah. I remembered what no one else would remember. And then I went to what I think is really the big piece that I discovered in all this, which is I said, so, okay, first of all, guilt thrives in the dark. It thrives in the murky, like that brown wallpaper sense. Oh, I've done something icky, but we haven't really named it. What is my crime? So my crime, right, why I'm guilty is because I left 10 minutes early, because I left after all our friends were dead and they were heading off to Target to get a charger to plug in somewhere to reach her. I left. I did. That is my crime. But here's where it gets really revolutionary, which is I said, so what's the cultural narrative that I'm breaking? Okay, so I broke a few. I broke that, in this case, a mother, or it really could be just a woman, is ever supposed to or allowed to put her needs above someone else's. Because I did do that. So that's big number one cultural narrative broken. And the second narrative that I realized I broke is that women are supposed to be without limits, no limits, no boundaries. You want it from me, I'm available. And I said, no, I have a limit here. I'm going to freeze to death. I mean, it doesn't have to be that, but I can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I also wrote a narrative that I can say can't now, but could I have crawled my way to Target with them? Yes, I probably could have. So at the end of the day, I did what I wanted to do, even though I could do the other. Strike three, right? So when I saw, oh, wow, so my guilt that I would normally be just marinating in, and then shame is I am bad, not just that I did bad. It would morph into that eventually, bad person, wasn't arising because I reframed the whole experience as my guilt is an opportunity to challenge faulty narratives. If I reject the guilt, I don't have anything to be guilty for. Guilt is buying into the assumptions that these are true. And when I could really see that guilt is the deal we make with the devil, it's the tax for getting to be good. But these rules about what make us good are faulty and fictional and imprisoning. So those were incredibly different. And, I walked daily with this mantra of you're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to be imperfect. You're allowed to say no with a period at the end of it. All these, you're allowed, for me, ultimately, to take care of yourself. It's been decades that I continue to practice that so that I am not Velcro to guilt, right? So I really practice that ongoing because the forces that tell us there's a right way to be, and I wrote down I made a quick list of some of the big narratives that we carry around. And actually, what I'd love for you to do maybe is take a moment and I've said some of them right. Never put your needs above anyone else's. Never do what you want just because you want it. That's not a good enough reason. Never be emotionally dysregulated. Never be angry. Never be, never push back in terms of your response to something. Um, Never, what are other ones? Never not be nice, right? Uh, so I have all of these lists, but I'd be really curious to hear what are the big narratives that you live by? And then what are the big ones maybe that are frightening to break? Because I will say one other thing here, which is when I realized I had broken the big no, which is I took care of my own needs over someone else's, I wanted to ask the follow-up question of myself, which was, what does that say about you then? Which is that I'm bad and selfish and don't care about my children. And then behind that, what's the real fear? Oh, alone, dying alone, existentially alone, cast out into a universe with no tether to anything. You know, we go big. We go big because, again, remember the early conditioning is that my belonging, my being loved, my feeling safe relies on everyone being happy with me. So that you see the link there. So what is the cultural narrative? Well, what does that say about me? And then what's my real deepest fear, which we can always, almost always trace back to fundamental abandonment and aloneness
Mm.
at a kind of primal level. So does that feel I have lots and lots of road map turns to offer, but maybe we want to leave it there. And so I'm really wanting you to talk with your neighbor or what have you about what are the big ones you buy into, you think? And then when you feel a sense of guilt, what do you think is the big cultural narrative that you're challenging?
I love that. I'm gonna pause here.
Okay, okay.
So I'd love to ask you about
We can
what.
hold that for later too, if that works.
No, this is great. No, I think this is great. I'd love to ask you about that specific incident and how, or maybe what was different that allowed you
Hmm.
not to feel guilt? Was it just so extreme? You had done so much, or say
Right.
more about that.
Great question. Yeah. So, in part, it was the chasm between my experience and what was coming back. It just was unmanageable. But I will say also, over years of doing this work and years of seeing the same system reinforced and the insanity of it, and also writing this new book on narratives and addressing cultural narratives, um, it it's become ever more clear to me uh, how these cultural narratives form a system that then we obey and behave within. And again, think of guilt as the policer of that system, right? Well, we feel guilty. Why do we feel guilty? Because we said we also matter, right? Why do we feel guilty that we admitted we were human? Oh, right, because we bought into an insane storyline. And so as I wrote this book over the last year, I was seeing how, particularly for women, we have become crazy ourselves in order to fit into a crazy system. So, of course, we break the rules. We do the thing that creates the guilt, but the guilt, again, immediately says, oh, okay, well, you've paid your penance, right? You feel terrible about yourself. You feel you've done something good. Okay. Because you really believe that you should be superhuman or perfect or the best of friends, the best of wives, the best of, always available. If I can say, when your husband or your partner, whatever, wants to be intimate, always available. That too, after you cook the dinner, you've got the kerchief on your head and you're doing the homework, you're just ready to go. So, what are these systems that we're part of? And so our crazy distortions of ourselves, uh, they support and strengthen already crazy assumptions.
Mm. So, I mean, so interesting. And I gave my group a survey, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, it's called a guilt questionnaire,
Mm.
and I wanted to read you some of their responses. One of the first questions I was going to ask you about it was, is this just because people that filled out a guilt questionnaire are extremely guilty, or is this what's is this the world we all live in? And certainly it sounds like, I mean, nothing is everyone, of course, but um, I'd love to read you just a few of the
Well, I can answer that question before, but I want to hear the words of these women. But my goodness, no. Let's go back to the Bible. Let's go back to the Bible. Who's the problem? Right? Who is the problem? And that continues throughout time immemorial. The woman created the problem, right? It's our fault. Uh, I beg to differ. I think that's a story we're buying into. But I want to hear the
yes,
women's
it
word.
sure is a story that we need to change, isn't it? Okay, so the first question, and I'm just going to read some of the responses. Where in your life does guilt tend to show up? And the answers are some of them. I'm ruled by guilt. Guilt is always in the driver's seat or the passenger seat of my life. If I look for it, I can find guilt in every aspect of my life. Everywhere, I feel guilty anytime I can't help someone or do something for them.
Mhm.
As a mother, wife, professional, in my social life, cooking, decorating, planning enough social activities, professional achievements. When I say no to something I don't want to do, but then I feel bad about declining, that I can't balance work and family, everything related to motherhood, lots of motherhood, kids, aging parents, choosing to do something for myself rather than spending that time with my children. I'm the only daughter who lives nearby and have aging parents. Mom
Yeah.
guilt, when to answer the email or phone call and when to be present. It's harder, it's much easier said than done to be off after hours. One woman
Let
said,
me jump in there for one quick sec. So, one of the ones I love, because I do a lot of work in the parenting space, and there's nobody I love more than my children, of course. But the idea that a mom, well, the narrative being a mom should always want to spend time with her kids, no matter what, no matter what. And that their activities, whether it's from the time they're doing the Barbies on the ground for hours and hours, should be endlessly fascinating, right? You're never bored. And any chance you have to be with them, you have to, because if you need anything outside of that as a grown up or a professional or any other aspect of your life, there's again something fundamentally wrong with you. So, more and more there's space to say, I don't always want to be with children. And sometimes I don't like them very much. I will lead the pack. I love them, of course, but sometimes it really, so being able to say, they're not that interesting. I don't want to go to Legoland. That's okay, just because it's with them. That is so incredibly chronic. The other thing I also want to speak to that woman, one of the responders, is that one of the sort of more subtle things that we're taught to be guilty for is, God forbid, to get off the treadmill of self improvement. So Libby is giggling, I will just say. Libby is smiling and giggling. But this idea that we could ever just be enough where we are, that we could stop looking for what's wrong with us. We're guilty for that. If you don't know what's wrong with you, you're guilty for not having tried hard enough to find it. Right? So, how dare you? It's so funny to me because we do all this work to get better, but we're never allowed to sort of land at the station of better. It's just an unending treadmill of, oh, well, now I'm going to do this and now I'm going to do that to reach some sort of model of the perfect woman who, again, is unreachable, unsustainable, all of that. So it takes a lot of courage to get off the treadmill and say, what if this is enough? What if
Mhm.
who I am is enough with the miracle and catastrophe that I am? Yes. Hang me in the village square. I'm imperfect. So I really appreciate that, sort of showing up in every aspect of your life, because underneath it, once again, it's some sort of standard that no one is reaching. But if we stop trying for it, we're doubly guilty.
One woman says a little bit of a paragraph here. Okay, so
Mm.
she's guilty about buying things that cost too much, i.e., a new car that's slightly nicer than what I need, even though I'm the sole earner. One could say I've quote earned it. Feeding my children takeout too many nights a week instead of making them fresh food, feeling like I'm not working enough or the right way. But this is ridiculous because I work because she goes on later to say she has a very busy job, a high level job, and she should not be thinking like this. Always thinking,
Guilty for thinking like this.
always thinking that she should be doing more, working harder, and doing something better or smarter. And the next person, I should not take time for myself. I should be multitasking. If I feel guilty that I let someone down or they are disappointed because of something I did or didn't do. And then finally, I love this. I should be generally doing more things, better things, or for others always. Gosh.
That pretty much covers the whole thing, right?
Right.
But it's interesting because I was working with a couple recently, and she, again, the primary money earner, and uh, felt terribly guilty that she did not like supporting her husband. And she wasn't feminist enough to say it didn't matter, this was gender, and so on. And when she finally got free of the narrative, right, which only works in one direction, really is interesting, but that she should be a bodhisattva, endlessly compassionate, and have no feelings about actually supporting her husband, even though it made her not attracted to him. She finally owned, very often, in order to free ourselves from guilt, we have to own that's true. She had spent all these years trying to fight, that's not true about me, that's not true. It is true. It made her sick to support him. So once that secret is out, right, the narrative that you should be endlessly open-hearted and have no response to anything or no feeling about anything or no expectations of your own or no needs of your own, that gets defanged when you say, yeah, I am that. And this business of time for myself, we have this mad idea that caring for others is a zero sum universe. If I care for myself, I'm taking away time I could care for others. It is fundamentally false. First of all, I mean, not, I hate this analogy, but, fill your own bucket. Libby and I both had dogs named Bucket. So every time I laugh about that, but who is locked away. So he's not barking right now. But in other words, that's made up. You're fed. And why not you too? Why not? So that's where a little mantra helps, which is I'm also allowed to matter. right? In terms of this, I'm not, working hard enough. We want to remind ourselves, we want to have a counter, kind of a sane narrative that goes with each of these. But for example, there is no enough, sweetheart. There is no enough, right? That is part of the smoke and mirrors. That is part of the whole game. So we unravel each one. And it's very interesting. I find that work with somebody who has denied and denied, I'm not that person who's selfish. I'm not that. Well, maybe, in fact, I do want time with myself. This is another one of our sort of culturally accepted narratives, which is that time to myself is somehow selfish.
Ah,
And so we say, I'm not. And then we stay in the other people's rooms until midnight, or we do whatever we do. But when we can just say out loud, I want to spend time with myself, right? We break, we crack the code so that when that's the thing held up against you, you see you're right.
uh-huh.
Okay, I don't agree with the meaning you're making out of that, which is that I'm bad and selfish. But the truth is, yes, I need also to reboot.
Hmm.
And time with myself is not time away from you. It's time with myself.
Uh-huh.
So each of these, that wonderful and so heartbreaking paragraph, needs to also have a corresponding narrative that fits in with your own values, that you start to build. And by not sort of drinking the guilt Kool-Aid, right, you realize I'm actively changing this storyline,
Hmm.
right? That there's an enough, or that I'm supposed to, or again, the primary storyline, I'm responsible, not just for how I behave, but for the results.
It's interesting how you had said earlier in terms of really, really asking yourself, should I be feeling guilty for this? And how really flipping that, I really don't ask myself that question. Like, am I,
Well, I don't even like, Libby, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't even like should I, because when you're doing should, you're bringing in the head. I want you to go, I want all of us to go to what's true for me, which lives below the neck. The shoulds and the how we're supposed to be, the law lives above the neck. So, do I feel in my gut, in my heart, bad about what I did? We got to separate all that we've learned about it and say, in my gut, do I feel okay with my choices?
mhm,
Or
mhm,
did they violate my values? In
mhm,
which case we make amends, we apologize, and we do it differently. Did I do something that I feel was unkind to someone?
mhm,
Different story.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
But as a primary question, what's true for me gets skipped right over.
mhm. It's so true. It's so true.
And that is, the one of the fundamental transformations here is that we are asking for our truth, not the truth that we've learned, but our truth,
Mhm,
right? And so that's not something that we get taught to
mhm,
feel, right? I mean, I love this story when I was writing The Emotionally Exhausted Woman. I swear it could have been central casting, but I was putting together some basic, sort of an outline. And I sat down at the diner, my lab for finding all things human. Excuse me. And a family sat down next to me with like an 8-year-old, maybe a girl and a 5-year-old boy. They ordered a cookie, one big cookie. The little boy broke it, one little broken cookie part, and one big, happy, nice one. And the girl, the 8-year-old, picked up the big one and gave it to her brother. And guess what the parents did? They clapped. And I thought, oh no, here it
No,
is. It's
no.
happening. It's happening. So her clapping happened by she wanted at some point before 8, she wanted the big piece.
Mhm.
But we really have to get back to something that almost gets behind the veil, right? Because these are so deeply ingrained in us. And of course, religion adds to it and many, many things. And that's all religions. That's not just Judaism, right? Not just Jewish guilt. This is everywhere. How we learn that we are responsible and that these are subtle ways. So, as the moms, if you are a mom of a daughter, to be really mindful of how am I implementing this or not implement. So sometimes what I'll do with my daughters is I'll really support them for asking for what they want, even when dot dot dot.
Ah.
Right? I know you do that, Libby, right? The strength in that.
Well, that's such a good reminder. It's such a good reminder because I'm sure, I'm not always doing that. I'm sure I'm applauding the big cookie choice. Yeah.
You do plenty of the other, though, I will say. And so we need though to make that kind of front brain, right? That we're countering that. It's okay to make the choice for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, that feels like sacrilege,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I have clients, who that's not just culturally not okay, but that goes against God.
Oh.
That costs them their place in heaven. So, again, it morphs very quickly into shame. I am bad that I would want that, right? And then this spiral. So then you end up not getting what you want, not getting what you need, most likely feeling resentful, right? Which gets buried away, most likely feeling angry. And then all of this gets buried and we get back into good status again. We've paid our price long enough. And I'm interested with women in, first of all, noticing how it's my fault is the default. It's
Mm.
just the default. Also, how we construct these stories. A client was telling me the other day about how she came home from work and she was, very tired. It was her late night. Her husband works from home, cuts out at about 5. And when she got home, there was nothing on the stove. So she was starving. And rather than just even inquire, like, hey, babe, what's going on? Immediately, the link, she connects dots, and the dots she connects in writing her narrative is, oh, did I emasculate him this morning when he talked about his novel? And I said, well, are you going to look for a job? Is this pushback? I must have done something. Oh, last weekend I wasn't available to him. I didn't celebrate right away. And then the tragedy is then we go about living in a way as if that's true,
Mm.
right? And we never even stop to say, what's the matter, right? The assumption we've learned is we've done something that created this, which in a certain sense takes up so much mental real estate. Then we obsess, then we live it as if it's true. Then we correct it when it was never true to begin with, right? So she thought it was something to do with his novel and not supporting it enough. And so she spends the next 3 days saying, you're a really good writer, you should. And the whole thing is made up, right? He had bumped his foot and he was irritated he couldn't run in the morning, is what fine. So it's all a fun house.
Fun house. The next couple of questions are similar, and I'll go through those and feel free to interject.
Yeah.
The question, when guilt arises, what underlying belief or story is being activated? And this is a lot of what you're just talking about.
This is the real,
This is
yes,
it.
this is when we discover that, and then right away, I want you to offer yourself what's true. I am allowed to be emotionally dysregulated. Yes, I am allowed to be angry.
Mhm.
Imagine.
Mhm.
Imagine without becoming an angry woman. I'm allowed to have a response to your behavior that might be not entirely even healed,
Mhm.
right? I'm allowed to not provide the sort of endlessly fun experience. To, the kids should go, they should have a beach holiday and then a skiing. You only do a beach holiday, right? I'm allowed to be a regular human, a bozo on the bus. Let me be a bozo on the bus, right? So I didn't, when we don't throw the dinner party for our families at night, every night, someone learns something, you bring a book, what's the value you learn? And we just let ourselves actually, because we're exhausted too, life changes. It's an entire, people don't, I will say, the beginning is bumpy. The beginning, where did the party maker go? Where did the one who only takes care of me go? It, but what we're doing is we're saying, I can't abandon myself anymore. I can't. I can't keep throwing myself under the bus. When do my needs also matter?
Well, and that gets me into a question one of our members submitted. And she says this: what do you recommend telling loved ones when you are trying to change and not be guilt-ridden so they understand you're trying to change and grow and you don't mean to sound uncaring?
Exactly that is what you say. It was beautifully stated. You say, I'm going through a transition, and this is what I am, how I am stretching. Right? These moments where we don't accept guilt are real stretches outside our patterning, outside our comfort zone. And I would so appreciate your help in that. It's not always easy. And what I want you to know is that sometimes your disappointment can also, just to contemplate, not have to mean I'm guilty. So I can empathize 100% with my not being what I've always been. And it doesn't mean I'm guilty.
Mm.
So trust me that I am working to make that a coexisting and not but. We've had it as one. You're not being happy. I'm guilty. I'm rejecting that. And please, you will tell me about your unhappiness. First, I need to be able to create this space here, which is, I feel okay. And can they coexist?
Huh, huh. Love that.
So we say we bring into the light. What doesn't work is when we hold these in the dark. It doesn't work. And then people only have the resentment, and you leave them with their story making about what you're doing.
Mhm.
Don't leave them with their story making,
Mm.
because it'll turn into something that fits into the cultural narrative. I would say lay it out there, trying to, the equal sign, trying to put a slash in between it. Trust me, and let me show you that your sadness still matters to me, even if I don't have to hate myself as the tax.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, a few responses about what story is being activated that people said. They said, I should be putting others' needs before mine. I should not take time for myself. If I can, I should. I'm supposed to be available to everyone all the time. Um,
Yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
all of this. It's a lot. It's not to say it's repetitive, but it is repetitive.
These are
And
the
then
big ones.
yeah, early, and then what early messages or expectations did you grow up with that still trigger guilt? And that's it's much of what you've said. People wrote back, they said that I should be selfish,
Yes,
I should be selfless,
that's
that
right.
women should be able to do it all. I shouldn't be selfish. Messages from church and school were always self-sacrifice and do good for others.
And the tragedy there, because that's the most common one I hear, in the hundreds and hundreds of women I've talked to, thousands, that the way it's so heartbreaking, the way we've learned to take care of ourselves is to abandon ourselves.
Mm.
is to be selfless. So all these methods of self-care, they skip over the primary problem, which is we're taking care of a selfless self. So it's all twisted in that sense. The very most celebrated aspect of a woman is selflessness.
Wow.
And as long as that sort of disappearance of self, abandonment of self for the other is what makes us most valuable, then everything we're doing to take care of ourselves supports that. Because again, this early messaging that it's more important to have a relationship with other people than it is to have a relationship with ourselves. That is so heartbreaking to see how I get a lot of women in their 50s and they've spent decades believing that. And so then there is what's wonderful about aging is that there is a waking up process, which is, hey, what about me? And it has its own natural kind of, kundalini awakening in that it comes where we just can't only play roles. We can't only be what's needed. We start to say, wait, this is my Mary Oliver's one wild and precious life. What do I want? And I don't want women to wait until they're in their, empty nesting kind of mode to get there.
Uh-huh.
It tends to fire up for us, if you
Uh-huh.
will. But it is so deep in our nervous systems that that's what makes us valuable to disappear, essentially. And
Gosh.
how dare we put ourselves back into the story
Yeah.
and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
That's the unbelievable part,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's interesting in the many conversations I've had with my daughter since. Um, the thing that just stuck with her so much is you won't feel guilty for this. It wasn't even that I did it. It was that, well, A, that I missed that was the only thing she wanted. And but the main thing was I wouldn't feel guilty.
That bothered her the most was
That
that
bothered
you,
her the most.
wow, that, yeah, wow, that's hard.
So we're really breaking the feminine narrative.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, when asked, what are you afraid of if you do not feel guilty all the time? People said that I will be seen as insensitive, uncaring, selfish, or callous. I'm afraid of what others will think, disappointing someone, looking
Going to
like I
jump
don't.
in one more time too
Yeah,
while you're doing that. So
yeah.
we also want to keep track of not just the cultural narrative, but maybe in a family dynamic, there are always narratives that relate to this guilt, which is, for example, if I have needs, then it makes people angry. If I have needs, I will be abandoned. If I have needs, there's just not enough room for my needs because there are too many triage. There's just too many other needs. If I have needs, it makes me just like X, Y, or Z in the family, which is not someone I want to be like. If I have needs, I will collapse under the needs and my self-esteem is built on not needing anything, not ever asking for help, not whatever it is. So we want to kind of take our little microscope, not little. I hate when people address little, but it's not a little because it's to do with women. Take our microscope and say, in my family of origin, what was the narrative around my honoring my own needs? A woman in my office this morning, my needs are irrelevant, very clear for her. They're just silly and irrelevant. The boys have the needs that are important. So find those for yourself because those threaten, again, primal safety that I won't belong, right? We're entering territory that feels very scary.
Mhm. When asked, what might be possible if you were not saddled by guilt,
Yes, yes,
people
yes.
said, I'd be bolder, more boundaried, I'd likely be less anxious and less hyper aware of everyone else. It would be a huge burden lifted. I'd feel lighter and liberated. I'd have less anxiety and less expectations of having the perfect, quote, family day or, quote, work day. High expectations leave me feeling frustrated and guilty or disappointed in others or myself. I might feel more peace. I'd have more time and energy for myself. I'd be more satisfied and relaxed about my life. I'd be able to make clearer decisions and figure out what I truly want.
That list always just slices me in half because we know so deeply, right? We would live an authentic life. We would live a far more authentic life and a less saddled, a less imprisoned life. And so be it. So be it. So let yourself have the courage to see who would I be. I love that question. I always ask that at the end of workshops because we know we know that there is a freer, more spontaneous, more real version of ourselves that's not allowed to come to the table, that's not ruled by should, but's ruled, God forbid, by want, right? And whether or not we will ever notice that the peanut butter jar has been left open or that the kid left the book, it's not in the backpack. I don't know. We're relationally attuned as women. We're emotionally attuned as women. Will we not notice it? I don't know. But I know that we don't need to then do all the follow-up that comes with that and the guilt if we don't manage that,
Mhm.
right? So I want to encourage you to step out and see as an experiment who you would be if your life weren't uh, ruled by guilt. If everything or most everything that you did was not so that you weren't perceived like that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's a totally different life where I bring in the example with my child because the child stuff is the hardest stuff. I've, uh, I mean, the rest of it for me is long gone, but I've been at this for a long time. Uh, the children, they tap into those, you know, uh, the shoulds are
Mhm.
so we work and we work and we work and we pay homage to that woman we would be. Imagine if we chose our life for
Mhm.
us, what would be possible?
Mhm.
And how loving we could be. I mean, I'll tip my hat. How loving we could be. Put your own oxygen mask. It's not why we do it. We do it because our life matters.
Mhm. When asked, where in your life would you like to let go of guilt? Everybody, it was just many of the responses were everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Um, do you have any other tangible things that we can do? I love, and just to reflect back to you, a couple of things. One, I love the idea of this transparency of telling those that we love what's happening with us as being one tangible thing. And um you also said to really ask yourself, do you really feel guilty for what you have done or not done?
And
And you
then and that is a beginning point of everything, which is that the question goes to you. I would say also that these were breaking trends here. So try these out in little micro movements, right? Try letting someone be disappointed and
Mhm.
not fixing it. And really working inside yourself that disappointment, I've been trained to believe, is my failing. What if disappointment were liberation? What if that could be true? That we're breaking this narrative. So reframe. And I want all of us to be repeating the mantra, you're allowed to also want. You're allowed to have needs and honor them. The mantras are really, really important. I would say, too, 100% with transparency. We think that there's shame around guilt. We think that we should feel guilty for feeling guilty, or that there's something wrong with it. The more we can name the real experience women are having and bring it into the light in our relationships, the more we can start to do the very thing we're doing, which is to live authentically.
Mm,
This is what I'm struggling with,
hmm
right? Which is, I'm going to admit to you, a lot of why I do what I do is because I feel guilty if I don't. I'm trying to discover what is true for me that I would do. My hunch is most of what I do, we can throw that in there. I don't know if I'd be on the floor in Legoland, but um, I'm trying to discover what's true about me rather than just what keeps me safe because it's how I'm supposed to be. So will you support me in, I got to throw out the shoulds and doing things because it makes me guilty to not do them in order to find out who I am.
mm,
And I'm at a point in my life where I'm more interested in the truth than I am in behaving.
hmm hmm
And then I would say for sure, look around you at the people in your life, your good friends, your family, all of it, and start bringing in people that support your realness, that support your humanness, that support what's true, not just because I can do that, I avoid your negative judgment, which is based on a guilty, a narrative that's faulty. I'm not really interested in that system anymore.
hmm
So who supports my being real
hmm
and would prefer that even?
Any final thought about for we're going to have some college aged girls in the
Ah,
midst, and I know a lot of people have, da young adult daughters. Any thoughts for that age group?
yeah. Oh, so important. So, so important. I would ask them to start to become aware, because again, what thrives in the dark, is what really imprisons us. So start to notice where they feel guilty and where did they learn what's the message that they're going against when
Mm,
they do that.
mhm,
I want young women, particularly, to start to build that skill right away. That guilt is not something we immediately buy as true. I should feel guilty, but say, oh, what's this guilt here about? What does it say about me? What am I afraid of? But what's the storyline? Do I buy that? Is that true? So we got to stop that at the gate when they're young before it becomes sort of our operating system. So awareness, 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 and then to again bring home to them, you're allowed a voice in the mix, right? You're not too big, too bold, too manly, too aggressive when you have the right answer in school,
yeah.
right?
Uh,
You're not taking up too much space. One of the earliest messages we learn as young women is don't make it about you. I'd say, why not? If you're the best in the bunch, why not?
mhm,
So to start to, not as memes, not as you be you, you got this kind of nonsense, but you're allowed to take up space. Your needs matter, not more. This is not an arrogance fest. This is not a, narcissism festival. This is just to say you also matter, right? Not just your partners, your this and that. And when you're a mom, not just your kids, you too matter.
mhm, mhm.
We're just asking for also mattership.
Will you tell us the title of your new book coming out?
I will. November 1st, 2026. It's a long process to get a book published, but the next one is called Narratives. You won't be surprised. Let go of the stories that keep you stuck. So
Love it. Oh, well, we look forward to we're all gonna look forward to reading it. So that's really exciting. Congratulations on that.
Absolutely. And
So,
anyone can always reach out to me for any of this. It is my work right now, and I'm very happy to help.
well, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it so much. I appreciate it so much, and beautiful conversation with you.
See you
Thank you so
soon.
much.
Lovely. See you
Okay, I'm
soon.
gonna pause here. Great.